Hello and welcome to your $1,400 stimulus check and stimulus package update. We have some big news here. The House has just unveiled the actual details of the next stimulus bill. It's not on this notebook, but I'm doing my demonstration here. We have all the details of the House stimulus bill. So let's cover everything you need to know about these details. There's some slight changes here and everything you can expect next week. Next week is very likely going to be a big week for all things stimulus. So Democrats have unveiled for the first time this new stimulus relief bill, 591 pages. It's similar to Biden's stimulus proposal, that $1.9 trillion stimulus proposal, but not identical. Here's what it includes. First off, unemployment boosts. This one's not a huge surprise, but there's a small change. We're looking at $400 boosts through the end of August. August 29th to be specific. I don't know why it's not going through the 31st. I don't make the rules. It was at the end of September. They bumped it up to August, probably just to shave down the package size just a little bit. That sounded a little weird. But yeah, unemployment boost, $400 per week. That's up $100 from where they currently sit. Nutrition assistance. We're looking at an increase of 15% through September. There is currently an increase through the summer. However, that will just be extended through the end of September. Stimulus checks. The reason everyone is here. Yes, there are stimulus checks in the next stimulus bill. We're looking at $1,400 checks for each individual, $1,400 checks for each child dependent, and $1,400 checks for each adult dependent. Yes, as of right now, adult dependents are still in the stimulus bill. I know adult dependents have been hurt in the past with this exact same thing where they stay on the bill up until it comes right down to the vote and then it gets negotiated out. I don't see that happening this time, but I know you've been burned before. So the checks are going to have income limits of $75,000 for individuals, $150,000 for couples, and that's where the cutoff starts. And then the check size phases down after that. The phase out on these will be faster than the first two rounds of checks. So there might be a small group of people who received partial stimulus payments in the first and second round who may not receive a payment this time around. The phase out is $100,000 for individuals and $200,000 for couples. That's the point when you just won't receive any amount of stimulus check. And also the payment will be based on either your 2019 or 2020 income, your adjusted gross income. Now, there's a really important note here. I've mentioned it once in the past, but if your 2020 income is lower than your 2019 income, you should file your taxes ASAP, especially if you're in a group, especially if your income was, let's say, over $75,000 in 2019, but it was under $75,000 in 2020. That is where the point is very important for you, because this will either increase the stimulus check size or mean the difference between receiving the check and not. I know a lot of people saw their income decline in 2020, so just make sure you file your taxes if you saw a decline in income. Also, the reverse is true. If you saw an increase in income in 2020, you may want to hold off a little bit on filing your 2020 taxes. This is because it may be the difference between you receiving a larger check or not, or even a check. Just something to consider. Next, we have housing assistance. $19.1 billion to help cover rent and utility payments for those who are behind on these payments. Now, we already have a $25 billion fund in the last stimulus bill that happened at the end of December. And I don't think any of that funding has actually been spent quite yet, mostly because most states are still putting together these programs. Frankly, the housing assistance program as part of the last stimulus bill is a mess. I've done several videos on this. I've gotten a little bit more information each time. I'll try and link one of those videos here. But the program is there to help cover rent and utilities and mortgage payments. The problem is each state has their own program, and some counties have their own program, and some cities have their own program. So it can be extremely confusing on how to do this. You should check out my video. I break down every single state, how you can receive assistance. Ultimately, you'll be able to, just some states and areas just haven't opened up the programs quite yet. Also in housing assistance, we have $10 billion for mortgage and utility assistance for homeowners, and $5 billion to help combat homelessness. Don't exactly know what the specifics are there, but that's just going to go to cities and states to help combat homelessness. Next, we have tax credits. These are very significant. First, we have the child tax credit. We've talked about this a few times. We're looking at a bump up to $3,600 per year per child under 6 years old, and $3,000 per year per child between the ages of 6 and 17. Now, we're still looking like this could be monthly payments, which makes a huge difference compared to the one lump sum payment that it typically is for this child tax credit. It's typically just $2,000 per year per child, paid once when you file taxes. This is looking more and more likely like it could be monthly payments. Of course, the IRS and the Treasury has to figure out all the logistics there, so we can't guarantee that yet. Also, we're looking at an increase in the earned income tax credit for those who don't have children. I know a lot of people watch these and they're like, I don't have kids, and this stimulus package is so focused on kids. It kind of sucks for me. Well, this is one additional thing that will kind of help you out. It's nearly tripled in this stimulus bill. So the earned income tax credit, that'll be when you file taxes in 2021. So it'll be a little while before you see that benefit, but hey, a couple $1,000, can't complain there. We're also looking at additional tax credits to employers who offer paid sick leave and family leave to their workers, which is of course good because there's an incentive there for employers to do these things. Next, we have schools and childcare funding and assistance. First, we have $130 billion to K through 12 schools. 20% of that funding has to go to address learning losses in the pandemic. Now, this is an issue that I've heard a lot of people concerned about, children just not really picking up those social skills, not really learning as much through the online learning that they've had to do in the last year or so. And 20% of $130 billion is supposed to go directly towards that, towards maybe more summer classes, extending hours, things like that. And $130 billion is also 6 times more than the Republican plan set to offer with that kind of bipartisan Republican plan we saw about a month ago. We're also looking at $40 billion for colleges and $39 billion to childcare providers, because I recently saw a statistic that I think it was 40% of all childcare providers are struggling to keep their doors open. So of course that's needed. We have to have childcare providers. Next, we have some more small business assistance, which I was a little bit surprised to see because there was so much small business assistance in the last stimulus bill. I wasn't really knowing what to expect here in this front. First, we have $15 billion in EIDL loan funding. Nothing about the grant that I've seen so far, unfortunately. I was really hoping to see some funding for the EIDL grant and have it open back up to those who weren't in the targeted areas, because right now the EIDL grant is only for those who have applied before December 27th and received less than $10,000 and are in a low income area and saw a reduction in gross receipts. It's very targeted. So I was hoping to see funding for that. Unfortunately, as of right now, it's not looking like that'll be included, just for the EIDL loan. We're also looking at an entirely new grant program for bars and restaurants, though, that basically covers any business expense, it looks like, $25 billion. So that's a very significant program. And we're looking at $7 billion more for the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, where the Paycheck Protection Program sits right now, it doesn't look like it's going to run out of funding, but hey, an extra $7 billion, we can't complain too much. Maybe we'll end up seeing a third round of PPP a few months down the road, but of course, that's still up in the air. Also, one big piece of PPP news, I have a link in the description for an entire new PPP application for anyone who doesn't have employees. You're an independent contractor, sole proprietor. As long as you don't have employees, you can use this. And it's a fast track program that allows you to do everything literally in 5 minutes. It applies for the first and second round for you. This actually is only for people who haven't yet received the first round. It does both. It's super automated, and forgiveness is automated. Like, this thing is mind blowing how user friendly and easy it is to follow. So definitely use the link in my description for that if you haven't applied for the PPP program yet. If you're an Uber driver, contractor, anyone who has a 1099 and it doesn't have employees, you definitely need to check that out. It's easier than ever. Also, we have $350 billion to state and local governments. This, of course, is one of those areas that is very, very hotly debated. A ton of funding for COVID vaccines and battling COVID, fighting COVID. And that includes $88 billion for research, testing, tracing, hiring, logistics, and everything having to do with the vaccine, basically. Also, next, this one was a little bit of a surprise, minimum wage increases. I wasn't really expecting that to be in a bill. We're looking at an increase to $15 per hour with a slow ramp up to 2025, and I don't believe we'll see any increases until after the pandemic is over. Also, as a part of this, they are guaranteed that tipped workers, youth workers, and disabled workers get the full minimum wage as well. So will this be the end of tipping if servers end up getting the full minimum wage? I don't know, this might have some further kind of societal changes if tipped wages aren't a thing anymore. I think that's kind of crazy. We might see some changes there. Then from here, that's everything that's in the bill. From here, the House Budget Committee will approve that bill next Monday. We're not looking like there's going to be any hiccups as far as that committee goes. And then the bill will be expected to be voted on sometime late next week in the House. It may extend through the weekend, but it's expected to be done in the House by next week. But then we still have a little bit of friction in the Senate. This is because the Senate reconciliation rules are a little bit more tricky to pass. And there is no wiggle room whatsoever for senators on the Democratic side. Literally every single Democratic senator needs to vote yes on this thing for it to pass. So, of course, still a little bit up in the air on that one front. I wouldn't want to be the one Democratic senator who gets in the way of a huge bill being passed and, something like 70% of all the U.S. Upset at me. I wouldn't want to be in that position, but we have to point out all the realistic sides of everything. And that's going to do it for today. I know this one was a little bit longer than usual, but there was a lot to talk about, so forgive me. If you enjoyed this update, please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, have a profitable day.